Amongst the groups of Africa, it's assumed that religion was just something that is deep in the hearts of all. But when the first Portuguese, the first Spanish, and first British got to South Africa, they told of a different story of believers in the local religions and non believers, who they say it was endemic in their civilizations. And in fact, they also assume that religion wasn't a big part in those people's lives and that forcing religion down people's throats wasn't part of their civilization, but instead looking at the chiefs as part of their religion or worshiping them like a religious force was what happened. Now, we know that these people did not worship men like god kings, as there's no evidence to this whatsoever. The writings or the accidental association is that words that have to do with kings or chiefs were usually associated with gods. Just like you would use the word King of Kings for Jesus, that does not mean that a king is Jesus. So, in this passage, a British author describes three different tribes in Africa who have atheists among them in different ways. Again, Casalis expressed an equally decided opinion as to the endemic atheism of the inhabitants of South Africa. Generally, he says, the tribes had entirely lost the idea of a creator. All the natives whom we have questioned on the subject have assured us that it never entered their heads that the earth and sky might be the work of an invisible being. Shaw, who also says the Kaffir nations cannot be said to possess any religion, and again, before missionaries and other Europeans had intercourse with the Kaffirs, they seem to have extremely vague and indistinct notions of God. The older Kaffirs used to speak of Umdali, the creator or maker of all things, and Utlanga, which word seems to have been used to denote the source of place from which all living things come forth. A similar statement is made by Orbasit. He says, they have scarcely retained the idea of supreme being. The more enlightened admit that there is a Morena in the heaven, whom they call the powerful master of things, but the multitudes deny that there is, and even this name of Morena is the same as they give to the lowest of the chiefs. All the blacks whom I have known are atheists, but it would not be difficult to find amongst them some theists. Their atheism, however, does not prevent their being extremely superstitious or from rendering a kind of worship to their ancestors, whom they call barimos, or in a singular morimo. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Hey, some of this seems like they're talking about people who worship a different type of God and they use it in a form, and these guys are not calling that a religion, but instead calling it atheism. But this verse should clear it up. Be this as it may, the impression so generally existing among those who have labored long in South Africa of the endemic atheism of the different peoples and the difficulty universally confessed of being able to determine whether the name applied to some being to whom certain supreme acts are referred is in the native mind anything more than the name of their great forefather or of some great hero benefactor of times gone by, to whom with perfect consistency an ancestor worshipping people would refer such acts. suggests that it would be both more wise and reverent and more likely to be effectual in attempting to teach them a new faith, to introduce a name not really newer to them than the idea of a supreme being itself. Before I read the next verse, I want to specify something. When they say that this specific people don't believe, they're talking about specific people, and they do acknowledge that others have a creator God. So it says here, Ali draws a very dark picture of the Makonde. He says they know nothing of a deity. They pray to their mothers when in distress or dying, know nothing of a future state, nor have they any religion except a belief in medicine, and every headsman is a doctor. No Arab has ever tried to convert them, but occasionally a slave taken to the coast has been circumcised in order to be clean. Some of them pray and say they know not the ordeal of Muay. This word kafir was usually used for non Muslim black Africans, especially of the Zanj population. And this didn't denote that they were atheists. In fact, they were very religious, according to documents, that these people were very, very religious. So I don't want to give you this impression that Africans were atheists. No, they were very religious, very, very. It's just they fostered or they allowed atheism to be a thing. You didn't have to believe in the order of the day or the religion of the day. But not only were they super religious about their own faiths, they also were Muslims. So a lot of Muslims in Africa were very devout to the religion, and they were also Christians, especially the Abyssinians, and also they were Jews. So it's not like these people are all atheists, and it's not like they would have been praised by the population, but instead, it wasn't, for some of these people, it was an afterthought. There was also something deeper going on, which is when other religions entered Africa, they played a weird role of atheizing the people because obviously they would like think, okay, so there's new religions here and our religion is there. So why would both of them be correct since they're so opposite to each other? Which is why that book on the Zulus says that they tried to unify, which is what Christianity usually does, try to unify both religions as to avoid atheism.